Welcome to Power Lunch Live on LinkedIn's new platform, LinkedIn Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. I do this program every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. There are a few exceptions. Yesterday we had Dr. Stephen Key on from Invent Rights, and so that was a real pleasure to get him on the program. And sometimes we do my Forbes book roundup when we get an author in that we can talk to, and that happens when it can happen. But normally every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday around 12 noon, we have a great guest on. Today, it's exciting because I've got two guests on. First time I've ever done that. We're actually testing technology today to see if that is even possible. And if it turns out well, we're going to do a lot more of it. My promise to you is get the best of the best thought leaders, best-selling authors, people who are doing great things in the world, helping people so that we can learn from them. Now, this program is interactive, so if you ask questions, we can actually answer them right here live online on the program. So do ask questions. I'll try to monitor LinkedIn and the other platforms that we are broadcasting on, which happens to be Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And so let's get to the program. My promise to you is to have great people. Today is no exception. I've got Dr. Terence Jackson. He's co-founder of the Jackson Consulting Group, co-founder of Access Strategies, which that's a new thing, I know, and I know he's excited about that. He's also a Marshall Goldsmith 100 coach, a Thinkers 50, top 50 world leader in coaching, and author of Transformational Thinking. I've also got Alisa Cohn. She's an executive coach to startups, CEOs, and emerging leaders from Fortune 500 companies. She's a Harvard lecturer, a Marshall Goldsmith 100 coach, a fellow columnist at Inc. and Forbes, and was selected as one of the top 10 coaches by Women in Women's Business. Guys, thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure.
It sounds like I can hear you. It sounds like we've got
so far so good.
The technology gods are shining on us right now. I better knock on wood. So let's get right to it. I know we got a little bit of a time constraint today. Alisa, what is your thought on, and Terry, I'll get to you right after that. How is leadership changing? And you guys work with the top leaders in the world, in the country, in business. Mm-hmm. How is it changing, and how are leaders adapting?
First of all, Rhett, thanks for having me. It's really great to be with you. It's a big question. We could spend the entire time on that.
Absolutely.
But what comes to mind, I think there's a couple things that come to mind. Leadership may very well be the same, but what we're emphasizing has changed quite a bit. Obviously, culture has become extremely front and center with sort of in everybody's mind's eye. I was just at Directors College at Stanford University, and there was the talk of even the audit committee of the board focused on culture. And that was just not true a few years ago. And so leaders have to really be mindful of their culture and think about the culture they're creating. I would add that soft skills, so-called soft skills, and interpersonal skills are increasingly becoming important in terms of a leader guiding folks through followership, because millennials and others don't want to be led in the same kind of way as in the past. There's no more hierarchy. Teams are distributed. And so it requires a more influence versus sort of a commitment versus compliance mindset around how to lead others in those kinds of environments.
Terry, what do you think?
Alisa hit the nail right on the head. It really is about influencing others. It's really about understanding human nature. So those interpersonal skills that everyone needs in order to be able to relate to others. I like to say those are the skills that we should have learned at our mother's knee, as we sat there talking to our moms. But, it's obvious that times have changed and everyone didn't learn those particular skill sets. And so the ability to be able to enroll or buy into what the vision is, given how you communicate, definitely goes a long way. And so leaders have to be excellent communicators, have to be able to enroll others in their vision, and they have to be able to treat their followers as if they want to be treated or even better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that matters in terms of retaining people, right? Because I know my father's generation, they stayed at jobs their whole careers, right? and most of us don't do that anymore. So really, to retain your top people, you've really got to. That's something that you really have to focus on. Is that something you guys both focus on in your coaching a lot?
When you say, you mean retention or
leadership? I mean, those leadership.
Leadership. I would just say yes, for sure. And don't forget, the workforce itself is changing. So people are definitely staying at jobs in different capacities, but also don't forget there's a transient worker, right? So there's a gig worker who's coming in and out of the workplace. There's sort of the digital nomads who want to work from everywhere. There's distributed teams. There's 4 generations in the workforce. So for all those reasons, you have to think about the way you're leading in a very different way. And to your point, give people what they need so that they will stay with you and build and give their full talents to you. That's what's necessary now.
Yeah. What do you guys think? What do you say to, Terry, I'll ask you first. What do you say to an executive or founder who's sitting on the fence about coaching? And I'm actually picking your brain to see. I got to see how my sales pitch is, or my
yeah, we always steal from you, Terry. We always steal from you.
What do you say? What do you say to somebody that says, "Yeah, I'm just, I don't know."
Coaching is really about helping your client close their learning gaps.
Okay.
And we know that those gaps pop up every day more often than not, simply because of the dynamics of what's happening in the workplace or across the globe in the economy. It's almost impossible to keep up with everything and all the changes that are happening. And so the best way to have a coach that will focus you in on specifics that you need to be able to lead your organization and to lead it effectively. We know that innovation and disruption are 2 of the key terms today. And so it's impossible to keep up with that. So a coach will help you focus on your performance, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about behavioral change, and that's what's most prevalent when you're talking about executive coaching, because when you become an executive, you have the skill set, you have those hard skills. It's all around the people skills. And so to constantly understand people, understand yourself, and have self-awareness of how you treat others is extremely important. And a coach can help you understand those gaps, close those gaps so you can execute better.
Someone told me yesterday, I was talking with a specialist who just wrote a new book on emotional intelligence, and we talked about that self-awareness. And I said something. She said, well, only about 15%. Everybody thinks they're self-aware, but about 15% are really self-aware. Alisa, what do you think? I mean, how do you talk to a client that's sort of on the fence?
Well, so I rarely talk about coaching. Right. So what I say to my client, because if we're talking about somebody who is trying to decide if they should hire a coach, here's what I say. What's on your mind? What would be significant and valuable that we could cover in about 20 minutes, not world peace, right? But a bite-sized topic that we can cover in 20 minutes to give you an example of what coaching has in store for you. That's what I think a lot about, because people are really focused on what can it do for me. Describing coaching isn't helpful. Bringing someone to an epiphany in 20 minutes is powerful no matter what happens.
Absolutely. You're starting to hear more and more about executive presence. And when I was running my company and things, and I've been writing for years on management, and I hadn't really ever thought about considering, the stuff I read and stuff but I just starting to see it everywhere now. What is your thought on executive presence, and what does that really mean? Everybody's different. What is executive presence, and how do you, what's your take on it?
Who do you want to go first? Well, it's like an area of passion for me. So executive presence is it's basically the thought around, when I walk into the room, who do I know is the boss? Or when someone walks in the room, how does he or she own that room? So they really have credibility and are able to, with their very presence, kind of command attention and sort of elements that need to happen in that room. So it can really be broken down. Sylviane Hewitt has a model which is about gravitas, communication, and appearance. So we don't like to talk about appearance, but appearance matters. But it's not the first sort of thing. The first thing is, do you have the ability to sort of stand tall, and are you showing yourself as a confident leader? Are you able to communicate at the right level, which is either bullet points or narrative, visionary or tactical, depending on the situation? Communication is also about listening. Are you able to listen to what's going on and read the room and adjust? And then, do you look the part? Those elements are super important. I would just add, especially for women, because a lot of times in this environment, even still, there's a sense, that a woman doesn't look like it, or somehow I don't sort of trust her, or she's so too diminutive. Women have to be really aware of how they're coming across physically from the point of view of executive presence to earn the right to be where they need to be at the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't agree more.
Jerry, what do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Alisa just said. For me, it's about when I walk in the room, you can tell who's commanding the room.
Yeah.
It's like a magnetic presence that they have. It seems as though everyone is attracted to a group of people or a specific person because of, one, how they communicate, two, what their stature is, and also their smile goes a long way. One of the things I've always asked myself is, well, do I have executive presence? So what does that really mean? Can I go into the room and command the room and work amongst different groups of people and understand and communicate with them at the same time? And so it's something that you constantly have to practice on. You never perfect it, because there's always a new group that you're not familiar with. You have to be able to show them that you are an executive, and especially for that tier of people who are middle management and they're seeking to get into the C-suite. Mm-hmm. It's extremely important for them.
Yeah. Rhett, can I tell a story about that?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you actually. That's great. That's a great question.
Good. So I worked with a senior executive. Her name is Megan, and they said about her, she's not inspiring. So, and that's obviously important as a senior leader. So I said, tell me more about what you mean. Oh, it's hard to explain, not inspiring. I finally pulled out of them. She kind of appears negative. She comes across as negative. So I'm thinking to myself, she doesn't seem negative to me. I wanted to dive into that with her. She got the feedback and we talked about it. I began to notice that she started every sentence with no. As in, no, Rhett, you're right. No, Rhett, can I tell a story? No, Terry, I could agree 100% with you. And I'm thinking, that's weird, right? So I said, Megan, have you noticed that you use no a lot? No, I don't, right? But of course, she began noticing it. And by the way, back to self-awareness, it was painful for her to see that. She counted up the number of times she said no. She was in the hundreds per day, and she painfully trained herself to stop starting every sentence with no. And she began to actually use the word yes or great, actively insert yes, great point. Glad you brought that up. Fantastic. Words like that. Wouldn't you know it, within 6 months, she became known as an inspirational leader. Ta-da! So that is really about presence and being aware of your style and how you're coming across and making those changes. They are sometimes small and nuanced and significant and painful to change, but very rewarding.
Yes.
I was going to ask you what was an example of what you were talking about. I'm glad you told that story, because it's such a small thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's coachable, and it's you can fix that.
Right.
I was going to say, how do you coach people on presence? Like some of it may be dress, I guess, but is there? I wanted to know some tools and things that you do, and that's that's perfect. What how do you? I guess the question is, how do you build when you're a leader or owner or founder of a company? It can be lonely at the top. You don't often have people to talk to. It's tough. It's hard work. I've been there. How do you coach mental toughness? I get that question a lot. How do you help people build resilience? Because that's something as a coach I struggle with. How to help people through those tough times. How do you help people with that?
One, by having the conversation that it's never personal, right? We have to have thick skin. It's about results at the end of the day. And so we have to be able to look at the scenarios and say, and ask myself, was this personal? Was this business? How does this feedback help me perform as an executive? And I think when you begin to have that conversation with yourself, or help executives to have that conversation, they begin to understand that, hey, this was what came to me as it relates to feedback is to help me perform better as an executive, help me to be more resilient. It wasn't a personal attack on me. And so I have to realize that. And, all of this, of course, ties into emotional intelligence, which I'm sure we'll get into. Being self-aware of knowing that this isn't personal, it's business. And in order for me to move to the next level, or if I'm in the C-suite, and in order for me to maybe move to a higher level in the C-suite, or exit that organization and go to another organization, resilience is something that every leader needs. And this is something that I have to practice on a day-to-day basis, because it's about, at the end of the day, the result that I can drive for the organization, and being able to take and accept feedback in a positive way, or accept failures in a positive way, because the next opportunity will always present itself.
Are there tips and tools, Terry, that you use with your clients?
Well, yes. I'll go through, for instance, we all know that Marshall has his 6 questions. What I've done is I've taken those questions and I've modified them for different scenarios. And so for this particular scenario, how did I accept feedback today? How resilient did I feel today when I accepted that feedback when, something didn't go right? Did I do my best, and was I aware of my resilience today? And so by using those kinds of questions, more specifically, guided toward resilience, it brings about that awareness is top of mind. And so all of a sudden they begin to practice it, and over a period of time, it becomes a part of the DNA.
Mm.
What do you think, Alisa, with your clients? How do you coach that?
Yeah. So yes, everything Terry just said, very powerful, especially that point about it's not personal. And so for all of us to recognize that things happen in the workplace. And so I think some ways to depersonalize it are, I tell my clients to watch it like it's a movie, right? Mm-hmm. So watch it like it's a movie playing out, and you're in the balcony watching this thing. And that helps you have curiosity about what's going on, and use it as data. Every situation, either you win or you get to learn. You win either way, because you're winning or you're learning. Right. And I always tell them that. And also, we really work on helping them think about their internal narrative. So they're, basically it's not what happens, it's a story you make up about it. So one client, one of my clients who was trying to influence better within the C-suite in his peer group, it's rough out there, and people were undermining him. And so he would take it personally, rather than recognize they have their own agenda. You don't get to that level without having kind of an ego and kind of a stance. And so I helped him sort of step back, watch it like it's a movie, and then also think about, what are you trying to get done? Focus on the goal. What he wanted to do was influence in a certain way. And so what he ended up doing was figuring out what is the goal and the agenda of these individuals, and really thinking about, does he have to have a one-on-one meeting with them, or does he have to sort of position it differently within those within the meetings that he's in, and then he had something to focus on rather than just feeling bad. Yes, right. Jeff Pfeffer says the most important tool that he asks people to build power, and he wrote the book on power, right, is building resilience. Try things, they fail. That's interesting. You learn and you try it again. That's how you get better at everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
What in today's world, I think leaders have to think about emotional intelligence, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where employees have choices, right? And if I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Office, right?
Yeah, I love that show.
Well, I've had a few bosses like that.
Yeah,
We probably all have. We
yeah, we
probably all
all
have
have.
one or two.
Yeah.
I literally had him. I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah.
How big a role does it play? And when you guys are coaching your clients, do you talk about emotional intelligence and what it is, and how to pay attention to how you're conducting yourself and how you're connecting with? Because I think today, it's okay to lead with your heart sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys think the same, but give me your take on emotional intelligence and what your conversations are with your clients. Terry?
I relate it to being authentic, right? Just be who you are. And as it relates to, I think the most important component of emotional intelligence is the self-awareness piece. How am I coming across? How am I communicating? Am I using the proper verbiage that I would want another to use with me in order to understand? The more I understand myself, the better it is for me to understand others that I'm working with and that I'm coaching. That self knowledge is extremely important. Knowing what you will do, what you won't do, how you're going to do it, and why you're going to do it. At the end of the day, it's really about purpose. What your purpose is. And as we think about millennials and emotional intelligence, they are driven by purpose, and they want different. They want to understand, why are we doing what we're doing? And so emotional intelligence is key, not only in the workplace, but in every aspect of society. As we have different groups of people enter into the United States, or as we continue to be, go global, we have to be able to understand, other people, their cultures. That's truly emotional intelligence as well. What their practices are and what they do, what they don't do, and how being self-aware may or may not make you a good fit for a particular culture. Mm-hmm. We have to be mindful of that. So it's an ongoing conversation. And I think at the very root, just about everything ties back to emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that Terry's point about self-awareness is, in some ways, you could say that's like the key to emotional intelligence. I would just add that I also appreciate the other side of that, which is social awareness. So it's self-awareness. What am I thinking and feeling? Social awareness. What's going on over there with those people? Right. And you've got to marry the two. So
marry the two, right? Yeah.
You've got to marry them. So I'm sure that Terry does this. I do this. I conduct 360 feedback. Yes. So that we understand from folks all around the executive what's going on in terms of what's working and what's not working. Because all my executives, my executive is the expert on his intention. Everybody around him is the expert in his impact. And you've got to be able to marry intention with impact in order to be an effective leader. And that's what emotional intelligence gives us as a gift.
What you barring having a lot of the tools that we use in coaching, let's say I'm in small town America. I've got I'm a small, medium-sized enterprise. What are some things that you can do to sort of figure out how you're doing? I mean, right? If you're proactive enough, I mean, not everybody's this. I don't know who I'm speaking to, but I'm just kind of curious. If I know, when I ran a business in South Carolina, small town. We didn't have coaches. We didn't have access to the tools that we have now. I'm just wondering, what can you do? Like, are there questions you can ask your staff, your team? Is there a way? I know you can probably download a 360 tool, but what would you recommend to leaders who are thinking about how to sort of be better with their teams in that way?
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach it, I guess?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. First of all, the best feedback is delivered one-on-one, not through a coach. If you can create psychological safety, if you can create an environment people are comfortable saying what there is to say to each other and to you, you have a very powerful team. It's not just them saying it to you. It's about them having challenging conversations, the ability to have productive conflict, and then work out their differences and also change and adapt to each other to help, grow a high performing team. That's very powerful. So how do you do that? You make it safe. And part of the way to make it safe is you, the leader, go first. And you say, I'd love to hear what I need to change or fix or grow to be the best leader for you. Now, our mentor Marshall, he asks for suggestions. That's very powerful, because it's not like I'm asking you to criticize me. Oh, I don't want to criticize the boss. What specific suggestions do you have for me to make me a better leader? And also, what should I start doing or stop doing? That helps create the language of productive discussion rather than the language of weird kind of conflict and confrontation.
Right.
I
actually
couldn't have said
changes the tone. Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better. As a leader, you ask your team, so what can I do better? How can I be better? How can I make this experience better for you so that you can more effectively do your job, more effectively take care of your family? You have to ask the question around culture. What culture, define the culture here. If you could paint a picture of the perfect culture that you could work in, what would it look like? How can I facilitate creating a better culture here? And if you were what would you do differently than I'm currently doing as the owner of this organization?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I have a client that's a sort of mid-sized client, and they have a couple different offices spread out. And it was interesting. We were doing some feedback the other day, and the teams went out, the CI teams went out to get and work with the remote offices with feedback, and people didn't want to give in a meeting setting. They wanted to do it anonymously. They were scared to do it, out front. And my conversation was, well, then you've got a culture problem. In those officers, right? If they're afraid to speak their mind in front of their supervisors, then there's a deeper problem.
Definitely.
Yes.
So that's I like what you were saying there. I think that's really, really true. Aside from doing the normal homework that you would do to hire a coach, and let's say you've made up your mind, or your board has made up your mind their mind for you, that you need a coach. And what are some questions you think people should ask of a coach before they engage them?
Lisa?
Well,
anyone want to take a stab?
Yeah. So again, I don't talk about coaching as much as I talk about what's on your mind and how can we kind of do something productive together. How can I be helpful to you, and how can I bring you to an epiphany? Right. At the same time, of course, there's a way in which you want to know, who is this person?
Right.
So some of the basics around background and experiences, I've had some people ask me, it's important to me to work with somebody who really has purpose. And so I'd love to know how you got into coaching. And what's meaningful for you? Some people ask that question. Some people want to know, I happen to be a CPA. They care a lot about the business background.
Right.
And I guess the last thing I would say, well, people definitely want to know who you've worked with who looks like them. Yes. And I think that's also a very helpful question. Like, have you helped someone who looks like me? I've changed my mind on this. I used to discount chemistry, chemistry, schmemistry, right? Like, as long as I can be helpful to you. But I now realize that my clients do things sometimes inspired by their relationship with me. And they want me to be proud. And they want, that I'm sort of in their ear. Right. They say, sort of like encouraging them or supporting them, or like saying, oh, you're not going to be happy if you do that or whatever. So it's like part big sister and part school teacher and part kind of wise advisor and like guru and like all mixed into one. I'm just being honest. And like, there's something there around the chemistry that is helpful for both of us to really have a relationship which is going to deliver more than promised. And so I think you really want to suss out, do I want to spend time with this person? Is it fun for me to spend time with this person?
You like them. If you like them as a person, that's even better, right?
Yeah, I think it's really true. And I used to discount that, and now I see how actually that's a very powerful part of coaching.
For us too, as coaches, right? I think on this side too, I think. Yeah. If you don't connect, it's going to make it a lot harder.
Yeah.
What do you think, Terry?
Everyone's not coachable. You run into those people who just,
That's right.
there's not a fit, if you will. Just like hiring someone within an organization, I'm looking to work with someone. I want to be able to fit with them. I want to be able to understand a little bit more about their purpose, what they're really trying to achieve, not just from a professional perspective, a bigger picture, you know, a family, legacy, those kinds of things. Because it's really about, you know, it's really about vision. Because, you know, for whatever reason, the company has called me in, have a vision for this person, and at this particular time, that vision is not being met because there's a gap. Really called me in because there's a gap, and that gap, you know, will help them go to the next level of become the person within the workplace. But we have to keep in mind that when we have an impact on the executive in the workplace, we also have an impact at their home as well, with their children, with their spouses, with other family members. So it's more than just helping them become a better professional, it's actually helping them become holistically a better person. And so I want to understand a little bit, or they should want to know, you know, some of their coaches, what they do from a personal perspective, the different types of people they have worked with, the different types of personalities that they work with, and what those results have looked like. I think they should ask about one's breadth and depth of professional experience as well, because I think that goes a long way as to being able to empathize with having been in a position of an executive type of position, so that you can drive those. You know, you've been there. You had to look at the P&L, right? You had to create strategy that drove organizations, or you've had to displace someone from a particular position. And so the more you can empathize with where they are, I think that it's better. It's much better to have a coach like that.
I'm glad you talked about the personal side of it too, because I think that's a lot of my coaching kind of goes across the line of just the work and because it gets into the life, right? It gets into your life. I mean,
you know, the journey of leadership development, I have really come to see, is the journey of just human development.
Yes.
Right. And it's just a subset of human development. And so we all have to be equipped and enabled to go there. We as coaches, and then our clients really are going to be led there by us to the extent that we can do that work with them.
Yeah, I'm more and more convinced of that every day.
Yeah.
I agree with you. This is completely off the subject.
Red Sox.
I've got to ask you, what makes you smile? Like a success story from your coaching that just makes you smile when you think about it. When maybe it pops into your head at a random moment, but it makes you smile. Something that you just really, you've seen a result of some of the work that you did with someone, and you've seen the result of that, and it makes you happy. Do you guys have an example of that?
You know, I remember coaching an executive at this particular firm, and he wasn't as confident in his ability to move to the next level of management within the organization. And as I began to coach him, and at the end of it, I received an email. And he told me, he said, "I really appreciated our coaching sessions. I called them a come to Jesus meeting."
Wow.
He said, because every time you had me thinking about not just me as a professional, but the kind of father I was, the type of husband I was, and how all that fit together. And as a result, you know, I've actually moved up in the organization. And if it were not for you with those meetings, those opportunities that I now have would never have presented themselves. And so for me, it was just about the person, the individual, helping another human being become better and achieve their goal. Or not for you with those meetings. That's why I am in coaching. It's to help other human beings become better.
Yeah. That's so powerful. I mean, Rhett, I feel like I have so many stories that make me smile. One that comes to mind is a senior director I worked with at a large public tech company. And I worked with her, and she had this funny image, like, it's so you step into the role and more confidence, and what's going to, she was really trying to build her confidence. What's the problem? Like, what's so bad going to happen? And she got clear that what was going to happen was they were going to find out, imposter syndrome, that she was not qualified, put her down in an office in the basement, which was actually a broom closet. Like, she was clear that was going to happen, right? And so it's like, wow, that's quite a story, right? What an imagination you have. Okay, so, over time, she got promoted to vice president. And I worked with her as vice president. We'd still reminisce about the broom closet. And over time, she got promoted to be the president of a large division. I mean, I worked with her on and off for years. And it was so powerful, all the ups and downs we had, including when she was president of the division. We had a very powerful coaching call, which took 8 minutes on a Friday night, 6 p.m., cell phone to cell phone. Like, and it changed a lot of what she was going to do on Monday with her team. And that changed the course of their project. I mean, that was like a beautiful moment, but always having what bonded us together, which was that broom closet. And it's so beautiful to have those stories about longevity. I'm sure Terry can relate to this, the longevity with clients, and these little moments that you made a difference for somebody.
For a lot of them, we become almost a part of the family.
Yeah.
Because of the breakthroughs they've had, they're telling their family members are seeing differences, and all of a sudden they were like, who is this guy that transformed dad or transformed mom, or that kind of thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
and then when they meet you, it's like, oh, it's you.
Yeah.
I know. It's funny. I feel the same way. Like, oh, I've heard so much about you. Yeah.
I know you. I know you in and out. Well, guys, this has been a great call, and I there are a lot of those subjects we could spend a whole hour on, really sort of digging into a little bit deeper. I did want to thank Dr. Linda Williams for a bunch of her comments, and I'll respond to some of those when we get back. Manuel Marquis, thank you for your comments and your engagement. I'm just trying to check to see here if we got any things that we can cover real quick, but it looks like these are mostly comments and thank yous. So anyway, guys, please share with the audience where people can find your work. Terry, talk about where they can get your book. I know, Alyssa, you've got stuff on Forbes and Inc. and a bunch of other places. So just give the brief, real quick rundown where people can find more about you guys' work. You're doing fantastic work out there. So I want people to be able to get in touch with you.
Oh.
Alyssa?
Well, they can find me at alisacohn.com, ALISACOHN, like
I'll put links on the on the
I appreciate that. And also follow me on Twitter at Alisa Cohn.
Okay.
You can find me on LinkedIn, most of all, Dr. Terence Jackson, PhD, or Terence Jackson, PhD. You can find me also on Twitter, and you can find my book, Transformational Thinking, First Step Toward Individual and Organizational Greatness, on Amazon.
A must read.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Hey, well, guys, thank you. You guys have a great day. I know listen, you've got some travel coming up.
I'm flying up to California.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Enjoy.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys have a good holiday, and thanks for joining us. Tomorrow, we've got Cheryl Beyer. We're going to be talking about AR. Her company is bringing AR information to life by using AR. And next week, we've got Robert Glazer on the program. So we've got a good lineup next week as well. And until then, you guys have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you again.